Allison, your children are simply too energetic for Thanksgiving dinner this year. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, her words cutting through my peaceful Thursday morning. We think it's better if they stay home. You're welcome to join us, of course, but Emma and Lucas should probably stay with Mike. I stood frozen in my kitchen, coffee mug suspended halfway to my lips, watching through the window as my children played in our backyard. The November wind scattered crimson leaves around them while they chased each other, their laughter a painful contrast to the growing knot in my stomach. But Daniel's children are still invited, right? Well, yes, she replied, using that sugar-coated, condescending tone that always made me feel like I was 15 again. Jenny and Mark are just better behaved, more refined. You understand, don't you, Allison? Last Thanksgiving, Emma spilled grape juice on my new tablecloth, and Lucas couldn't sit still during dinner. Your brother's children know how to conduct themselves at formal gatherings. My name is Ally, and at 35, I just got told my children weren't good enough for our family Thanksgiving dinner. The same dinner I've helped prepare for the last decade. The same dinner where, last year, my mother praised Daniel's daughter Jenny for her proper manners, right after she'd thrown a tantrum about not getting enough dessert. Through the kitchen window, I watched Emma, my bright-eyed 8-year-old, helping Lucas, 6, construct an enormous pile of leaves. Their red winter coats stood out against the fading autumn grass as they worked together, completely unaware that their grandmother had just deemed them too unruly for family dinner. Mike was out there with them, pretending to be a leaf monster, causing delighted squeals from our children. He looked up and caught my eye through the window, his smile fading when he saw my expression. The signs of my parents' favoritism had always been there, like a slow-growing poison in our family tree. Every Christmas, Daniel's kids got the latest technology and expensive toys, while mine got practical items like winter clothes and educational books. Last Christmas, Jenny got an iPad Pro while Emma received a set of reading comprehension workbooks. Mark got a Nintendo Switch while Lucas got a winter coat and some science kits. Every summer vacation, they'd take Jenny and Mark to Disney World or Universal Studios while my kids got excited about day trips to local parks or the city zoo. When Daniel needed help with his house down payment last year, my parents wrote him a check for $50,000 without hesitation. But when I asked for help with Emma's $5,000 medical bills after her severe asthma attack, they lectured me about financial responsibility and suggested I budget better. Don't be so dramatic, Allison, my mother sighed, emphasizing my full name like she always did when she was disappointed in me. We're just trying to have a nice, peaceful Thanksgiving. You can still join us. Maybe use this as a teaching moment for your children about proper behavior. I glanced at our refrigerator, covered with Emma's straight-A report cards and Lucas's creative art projects from school. Next to them hung a family photo from last summer's beach trip, all 4 of us beaming at the camera, covered in sand and sunscreen, genuine joy radiating from every smile. Mike would be livid when he heard about this latest slight. He'd always said my parents played favorites, but I kept making excuses for them, holding on to hope that things would change. Actually, Mom, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained, I think it's time we started our own traditions. My family will be having Thanksgiving at our house this year. If you ever decide all your grandchildren are equally worthy of your time and love, you know where to find us. The back door opened, bringing with it a burst of cold air and the sound of children's laughter. Mike walked in with Emma and Lucas, their cheeks red from the cold, leaves stuck in their hair. One look at my face and Mike's expression hardened. He'd always been my strongest advocate, supporting me through years of subtle put-downs and not-so-subtle favoritism while encouraging me to stand up for myself and our children. But Allison, my mother's voice rose an octave, what about our family traditions? Your father will be so disappointed. And Daniel's already planning to bring that wonderful cranberry sauce Jenny helped make. Goodbye, Mom. I ended the call and placed my phone face down on the counter, turning to my family. Emma immediately picked up on my mood, just like she always did. My sensitive, empathetic daughter who, according to my mother, was too loud and too energetic. Is everything okay, Mommy? She asked, brushing leaves from her red curls. Mike stepped forward, his jaw set. What did she say this time? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with incoming texts. I glanced down to see messages flooding in from both my parents and Daniel. Dad, your mother is crying. Call her back immediately. Mom, you're being selfish and childish. Think about the family. Daniel, way to ruin Thanksgiving. Again. Jenny and Mark were looking forward to showing off their new piano pieces. I switched off my phone completely, something I'd never had the courage to do before. The silence felt liberating. Looking at my children's concerned faces, I made a decision that had been years in the making. How would you two like to help me plan our very own special Thanksgiving dinner? I asked, forcing brightness into my voice. We could make it exactly the way we want it. Lucas's eyes lit up. Can we have mac and cheese instead of that green bean stuff? And can I help cook? Emma added eagerly. Grandma never lets me in the kitchen because she says I'll mess things up. Mike wrapped an arm around my shoulders, and I leaned into his strength. I think that sounds perfect, he said, giving me a gentle squeeze. Our house, our rules, our traditions. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat at our kitchen table with a glass of wine and finally allowed myself to look at my phone again. 47 missed calls and over 60 text messages. But it was an email from my mother that caught my attention, sent just minutes ago. Allison, I've attached a spreadsheet detailing all the expenses your father and I have incurred raising you. This includes your college tuition, your first car, and the deposit we helped with on your starter home. Given your ungrateful attitude, we expect repayment of these funds. We've always known Daniel was the more responsible child, and today you've proven us right yet again. If you insist on this ridiculous behavior, we'll have no choice but to take legal action to secure our rights as grandparents. Your father has already spoken with our lawyer. Think carefully about your next move. Mom! I opened the attachment with trembling fingers. The spreadsheet was meticulously detailed, going back to my childhood. They'd even included the cost of my braces and my high school prom dress. The total at the bottom made my stomach lurch. $267,843.52. Mike found me staring at my laptop screen, my wine glass empty. Holy hell, he whispered, reading over my shoulder. They're actually trying to bill you for raising their own child? I let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. Look at this entry. Christmas 1995. Barbie Dream House. $89.99. They're charging me for my childhood Christmas presents. My voice cracked. But you know what's not on here? The therapy sessions I needed after Mom told me I was too fat to be in my high school play. Or the time they forgot my college graduation because Daniel's wife was having a baby shower the same weekend. Mike pulled up a chair beside me, his face grim. We need to talk about something, Ally. Remember last month when your mom asked to use your credit card for emergency groceries because she'd forgotten her wallet? Yeah. Well, I was reviewing our statements today. They've been using your card for months, not just that one time. Small charges here and there, but it adds up to over $3,000. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I remembered how Mom had insisted on helping me set up my online banking years ago, how she'd needed my card details for emergency purposes, all those times she'd offered to pick up a few things for us while shopping. I've already canceled the card, Mike continued, his hand steady on my shoulder. But honey, this has to stop. They're not just playing favorites anymore, they're financially abusing you. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Daniel. Mom says you're trying to destroy the family. Real classy, sis. Jenny's crying because she won't see her cousins at Thanksgiving. Hope you're happy with yourself. I thought about Jenny, my niece who'd mockingly called Emma baby last Christmas when she got excited about her new art supplies. The same Jenny who'd thrown a fit over not getting the latest iPhone model but was considered refined by my parents. You know what? I said, standing up so suddenly my chair scraped against the floor. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I opened my laptop and started typing. Dear Mom and Dad, I've received your email and financial statement. Please find attached my own spreadsheet. Emotional damage from years of favoritism, priceless. Therapy costs for childhood trauma, $15,000. Unauthorized credit card charges, $3,247.86. Cost of realizing my children deserve better than this, $0. Consider this my final communication until you can acknowledge the harm you've caused. Any further threats of legal action will be directed to my lawyer. Regards. Ally. The response was nuclear. Within minutes, my phone exploded with calls and messages. My father's voice, red-faced and thundering, filled our answering machine. How dare you accuse us of theft? We raised you better than this. Your mother is having heart palpitations. But for the first time in my life, their anger didn't send me into a panic. Instead, I focused on planning our own Thanksgiving celebration. Emma and Lucas threw themselves into the preparations with pure joy, covering our dining room with construction paper turkeys and handmade place cards. A week before Thanksgiving, my parents escalated their campaign. They showed up unannounced at our front door, Daniel and his family in tow, like some sort of intervention squad. "We're here to talk sense into you," my mother announced, attempting to push past me into the house. But Mike appeared behind me, his presence solid and reassuring. "You're not welcome here without an invitation," he said firmly. "And certainly not after threatening legal action against us." Jenny and Mark stood behind their parents, smirking as they filmed everything on their phones. Emma and Lucas peeked around the corner, and I saw Emma's face fall as Jenny whispered something to Mark that made them both snicker. "Those are my grandchildren in there," my mother declared, pointing dramatically past us. "We have rights." I felt something snap inside me, years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. Rights. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "Let's talk about rights. You had the right to love all your grandchildren equally. You had the right to treat your children fairly. Instead, you've spent years playing favorites, emotionally manipulating me, and apparently stealing from me through my credit card." Daniel stepped forward, his face red. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Allison. Mom and Dad have always helped all of us." "Really?" I pulled out my phone where I'd saved screenshots of years of financial records. "Should we compare the help they've given each of us? The house down payment they gave you versus the lectures they gave me about financial responsibility when my daughter needed medical care." My father's face purpled. "We don't have to stand here and listen to this ingratitude." "You're right," I said calmly. "You don't. In fact, you don't have to stand here at all. Please leave before I call the police and report you for trespassing." My mother gasped as if I'd slapped her. "You wouldn't dare call the police on your own parents. Try me." I held up my phone. "And Jenny, Mark, since you're so eager to document everything, make sure you get this part too. If any of that footage ends up on social media, we'll be having a very different legal conversation about privacy laws and minor children." They lowered their phones immediately, their smug expressions faltering. Behind me, I heard Mike quietly calling Emma and Lucas away from the door, protecting them from this ugly scene. That night, after we'd calmed the kids and assured them everything was okay, Mike and I sat on our back porch. The November air was crisp, and overhead, stars punctured the darkness like tiny promises. "You know they're not going to let this go easily," Mike said, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "I know," I replied, feeling strangely peaceful. "But I'm not that scared little girl anymore, desperate for their approval. I'm a mother now, and I need to show Emma and Lucas what healthy boundaries look like." Thanksgiving Day dawned bright and clear. Our house filled with the smell of roasting turkey and, yes, mac and cheese. Emma proudly arranged her handmade centerpiece while Lucas tested each chair to find the perfect bouncy one for himself. Mike's parents joined us, bringing their famous pumpkin pies and unconditional love for all their grandchildren. My phone remained blessedly silent. The only message I received was a formal email from my parents' lawyer, which I forwarded directly to our own attorney. Some battles are worth fighting, and this one was about more than just a holiday dinner. As we sat around our table, I watched Emma help Lucas cut his turkey, both of them giggling over some private joke. They were exactly who they were meant to be: energetic, loving, occasionally messy, perfectly imperfect children. My children. Mike's mom caught my eye across the table and smiled warmly. "This is wonderful, Ally," she said, gesturing to the slightly lopsided dinner rolls Emma had insisted on making herself. "This is exactly what Thanksgiving should be." Looking around at our noisy, happy table, I couldn't agree more. Sometimes the family you choose, the boundaries you set, and the traditions you build yourself are worth more than any inheritance or approval you might lose along the way. And my kids? They didn't need a refined dinner at their grandparents' house. They needed what they already had: the freedom to be themselves, to laugh loudly, to make messes, and to know they were loved completely, just as they were. That was worth everything. That was 2 years ago. Life has a way of showing you who people really are, and the aftermath of that Thanksgiving standoff proved enlightening in ways I never expected. My parents did try the legal route, but their case fell apart quickly. Their lawyer actually dropped them when he discovered the unauthorized credit card charges. Daniel, ever the golden child, paid for a new attorney, but by then we had documented everything. The credit card company's fraud department had been particularly interested in my mother's pattern of borrowing my card. The most surprising twist came last month when Jenny, now 15, showed up at our door one rainy afternoon. She stood on our porch, mascara running down her face, looking nothing like the smug teenager who'd filmed us that Thanksgiving. "Can I talk to Emma?" she asked, her voice small. I need help." Turns out, living under the weight of being the perfect grandchild had its own costs. Jenny had been caught cheating on a major exam, and while my parents and Daniel were focused on how this would affect her college applications, no one had asked her why she'd felt so desperate to maintain her image of perfection. Emma, my beautiful, empathetic daughter, took her cousin upstairs to her creative space, a corner of her room filled with art supplies and comfortable cushions. They emerged 2 hours later, Jenny's face tear-stained but peaceful, Emma chattering about starting an art therapy club at school. "Your house feels different," Jenny told me before leaving. "It feels real." Last week, we received an unexpected letter from Mark, Jenny's younger brother. He'd written to apologize for his behavior and asked if he could come over sometime to play video games with Lucas. "Mom and Dad always say video games rot your brain," he wrote, "but I see Lucas's robotics competition trophies on social media. Maybe he could teach me about programming." Mike found me crying over that letter in our kitchen. "You okay?" he asked, pulling me into a hug. "I'm better than okay," I replied. "We broke the cycle, Mike. We chose something better." My parents still send formal demands through their lawyer occasionally, each one more desperate than the last. Daniel still posts perfectly staged family photos on Facebook, though Jenny's smile never quite reaches her eyes anymore. But our house? Our house rings with laughter, creativity, and the occasional chaos of real life. Emma's now 10 and leading her school's art club. Lucas, at 8, just won another robotics competition with his slightly messy but incredibly innovative design, as his teacher put it. And me? I'm finally the mother I always wanted to be, not the daughter I was trained to be. Sometimes the best family traditions are the ones you have the courage to start yourself.